All right, here we go. So again, I'm using Dr. Webster's. If you're watching this and you want to see the full video, you can go onto the Moodle and watch the full and see it in a little bit more detail. We discussed this. There's nothing right here. We're doing word problems. Well, all of these are the same thing, right? Word problems we're modeling a situation with algebra. We're applying actual algebra to real life scenarios, etc., etc., etc. Okay. The book, and many people are going to say there's going to be some steps we have to follow. It's funny whenever I see steps like this, I think it's kind of like understand the problem. That's probably the hardest step, right? If you can do that, it makes sense. But the biggest thing I'm going to tell you is understand the problem means what is the actual question being asked? You know what I mean? Like kind of think, what is my end goal? What am I looking for? If you had me for geometry a long time ago, you remember I used to always write a variable with a question mark. Be like, that's what I'm looking for. You need to know what you're looking for to know what to do. Set variables for everything. Give everything a letter that you don't know. Make the equations. And once you have the equations, it's always going to be just basic algebra for this section, for this part. Yeah. Solve it and give final answers. Interpretation is really important. It's not going to come up as much in this class, but if you end up maybe next year, if you take college pre-calc, interpretation is very important. Okay? Because what's finding an answer if you can't explain to someone what it means? I'll tell you a story about that sometime. All right. I think best way I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do some examples. All right. So we're looking at example 1. We have a rental company. It's charging $72 per day plus a $120 drop-off fee for an item. And we need to make our equation for it. Now I'm going to make sure and match my variables. I don't know how y'all make it through like your life without coffee. No thanks, right? I guess there's Alanis or whatever they're called. Was that right? Is that what they're called? I don't know. All right. Few quick things. When we talked about slope, what did I tell you the actual interpretation of slope is? It's not rise over run most of the time. It's a change. It's a rate of change, miles per hour. So I have $72 per day. So what's that going to be in my equation? The slope. That's slope. Rate of change. Anytime I see a per something, that's your slope in an equation. Plus 120. So no matter what, even if it was 0 days, but I had to drop off something, it's 120. So that's my initial, the y-intercept, right? So I have a rate and I have an initial. So I'm going to make an equation for the total cost. Don't use C. Don't ever use C when you're writing. Because is it capital or lowercase? How do you know? I actually think that's usually they're capital. That's good. That was good. And we're going to do D is number of days. So again, my rate is 72 based on how many days. Slope times days plus my initial. There we go. Are we good on that? Anything too scary? Now, really, does this mean anything to me right now? No, we're going to ask questions about it. In the homework set, it's going to be like, write the equation, and then it's going to say, hey, given this equation, what's the cost for a 14-day rental? So where do I plug in my 14? Does that go into cost or days? Days. There we go. I plug it in. And I got $400. Now, oh man. The best way you could answer a question like this, it's not going to come up in the homework set, but the best way in real life would be the cost of a 14-day rental is $400. Okay? So if you end up ever in an AP class or higher level, make sure you can write that one sentence with the cost is, and writing the sentence isn't that difficult. You just got to think, what was the question? Reword the question, is answer. You know what I mean? Anytime you're asked to answer a question in math and give a sentence, it's just the cost for a 14-day rental is $400, right? Don't overthink it. Even if you're if we ever offer AP pre-calc or AP stats, it's always read the question is, well, sometimes for AP stats. Okay. Now, oh, that wasn't $400. That was one. Too many crickets. Erase. Nah, we all make mistakes. I was looking ahead at the other question. It's $1,128. I was gonna say that's a lot. That doesn't make sense actually. Yep. That's why you always have an eraser. This is where the $400 comes up. Now, I'm given $400. Is that a cost or a days? That's a cost. And I want to know how many. That's all the money I got in my pockets. I want to know how many days I can rent it. Back in the old times before credit cards, and I used cash in high school all the time, I would have to do this calculation, look at my wallet and see a 20 and think how many gallons of gas can I actually buy? Because if you went over, you're screwed. You know what I mean? That was terrifying actually. One time I started pumping gas, I put it into my gas can, and then I realized I didn't have my wallet on me. That would have been terrifying. Yeah, we had to siphon out, put it back into the tank. It's been awful. I would have to do manual labor. All right, so let's solve this piece. It's a straightforward algebra equation, right? I told you once we get the equations, there's always going to be pretty straightforward algebra for this section. For most, I would actually say most of this class, if not all of it, is algebra. So it's 280 equals 72D divided by 72. And I got 3.89 days. Now, how you answer this, read the question, right? If it's just like a given approximate how many days it would be, 3.89 is approximately how many days. If this is how many days can you rent it for, what's the answer? 3. I can't go in there and be like, I got enough for half a day. It's just I can only rent it for 3, okay? I'm pretty sure whenever you take a test or a quiz, it will tell you round to the nearest tenth or round, you know what I mean? It'll tell you that. But just use your logics with, because if you only $400 in your pocket, you can't go rent for 4 days. Okay? And you want to see something funny, go to All Seasons and try to rent something and say, I want it for 3.8 days. They're not going to be impressed. People online have no idea what I'm talking about. All right, are we good on that one? Rate of change is your slope. Initial is your y-intercept. Actually, most of the stuff we're going to do today relates directly to the last section. That's why they combine them. All right, example 2. I have to write over here. So 2 jobs are offered. One is 45 grand with an 8% commission, and the other one 75,000 with a 4% commission. So this is one of those situations. Do you bet on yourself that you can sell more, or do you need that initial salary, right? So now I need 2 equations, okay? We're going to write, this is, what? I hate using S's as well because I don't know if they're capital or lowercase and they look like 5s. So, but write the total salary for each in terms of S and the amount of commission sales as C. So the first job is what? Their salary is going to be equal to, what's their initial? 45,000. And I could put that in the back end. Remember, you can flip-flop when you're adding, right? Commuted property. I'm just going by what I'm reading. Now, 8% commission, that's a rate, right? It's 8% of C is what they get. So I'm going to do plus. Be careful now, 8% becomes 0.08, right? Times C. So that's how many monies they're going to make. I don't know if I could ever do a commission job. I feel like you'd have to be really cutthroat and pushy. All right, next one, initial 75,000 plus 4. Any questions where those two came from, right? Rate times my x, or treating C like x, equals my total. All right. So there we go. That question's answered, right? Any questions on that? Now, here's the big question. How much, what if you're going to make $25,000 worth of sales? How much does each person make? Okay, so this is something you'd have to ask yourself with different job offers. So for this person, I just plug in my 250, right? $150,000. Okay. So salesperson 1 would make, let's see if make sure I copy it down right, $65,000. Right? Right away, which one do you think is going to make more if you know the first one made 65,000? Yeah, the second. Thank you. The second one, because they already start with 75. They could just sit on their tuchus all day, and they would outmake that person. This person actually made $85,000. All right, it's not bad. Now, $1 million question. I did hit record, right? Oh, thank goodness. All right, $1 million question. How much does the salesman need to make so the total salary of both jobs is the same? Well, I know it's not $250,000, right? Those are different. What do I do with my two equations? Set them equal to each other. Now, I could go through and set them equal and solve it. Could you graph both equations and see where they intersect? Yeah, that works too. Both work. But yeah, just take your two equations. Point. And set them equal to each other. 5,000. I always put that 0 in front. I used to not do that. All right. I didn't do any of my work. So I'm going to go pretty quick through this. So I get 0.04C on one side equals 30,000 on the other, right? Divide by 0.04. I got C is $750,000. Now that's an important total because I can answer a lot of questions with that now. Sorry, I skipped a lot of steps. I subtracted the 45 and subtracted the 0.04. Now that is the point. If you think you're going to make over $750,000 in sales, which job are you going to take? If you think you're going to get over that, do you want to take A or B? Which one do you guys think? Top or bottom? If you're going to make over $750,000 in sales. Top. Because that's the commission-based one. Every point after that, the top one's going to make more money. Every point below that, bottom one's going to make some more money. So if you don't think you're very good at it, take the guarantee. Take the guaranteed contract. I know, right? Oh, this one's not bad. That's not a mouse. This is a mouse. This is a really common type of question they like to do on standardized testing. These ones always throw people for a loop. Could you guess and check on these? Is that a legit strategy? 100%, right? Because you could start with two numbers at 47. You could be like, I don't know, 23 and 24. oh, but one's not 9 more, then I could go like 20 and 27. You know what I mean? Oh, then 19 and 28. So you could guess and check. 100%, that's not a terrible strategy for the two numbers. But what if I asked you to come up with an equation for that? So I have two numbers, x and y, right? What do x and y have to add up to? 47. Now, what's y equal to? One number is 9 more than the other, right? So couldn't I just say y is equal to x plus 9? Yeah, because it's 9 more. So once I know this, I can just plug it in. So there is an algebraic way to do these. Combine my like terms. Do this dealio. Do this. This is a good explanation right here. So I got x is 19. Again, when you're dealing with two numbers, honestly, guess and check is pretty close to the same amount of work as this. But I might ask, give me the equations that set up. This is equation 1, equation 2. Whenever you're dealing with more than one variable, one of the equations is almost always a total. Like if this plus this equals a total. You might have saw that if you took Algebra 2, right? There's always like, if you have kids tickets and adult tickets and you sold this many tickets and this is the price of each, you know what I'm saying? The first one's usually x plus y equals how many tickets you sold. So 19 is not my answer, right? 19 is one of the answer. How do I find the other number? You just add 9. Yeah. 28. So I got the same answer by doing algebra. Okay. All right. So that's example 3. We're halfway there. I'm not going to do this problem, but I'm going to show you how to set it up. 3 consecutive integers. It's like 1, 2, 3. 3 consecutive integers. What's the consecutive integer after 140? What's the next number? 141. What's the one after that? 142. How do you get the next number? What do you add to it? 1. So if I take a number plus the next number plus the next number, right? You don't have to put that in parentheses. I'm just showing you why it works. That equals 519. So this is, again, it's a standardized, common standardized test problem. It's a common algebra problem. And it's one that a lot of people kind of shut down because they're like, I don't know, that's a lot of words. But just think about it. What's it mean to be the next number? You're adding 1. Add 2. What if I said consecutive even numbers? It'd be x or 2. Actually, yeah, you can use x. It'd be x and then x plus 2. Because how do you get the next number for evens? Just count by 2. How do you get the next odd? Count by 2s. Does that make sense? So don't overthink these ones. There's none on the homework set like it. But again, if you ever plan on taking any sort of standardized test, really good shot of getting a question like that. So this one I got x is 172. If you solve it. So then that's one of my numbers. How do I find the next ones? Add 1. Or I could just count. Right? Really common type of question. We're skipping example 5. We're going to skip example 5 if you guys are okay with it. If you like to see it, watch the video on the Moodles. Okay? That's probably a good sign that it's not going to show up on your homework set. Oh, this is good. So actually, fun fact, this is similar to if you do real life investment, it's not bad. Like, think about this. You have investments to make, let's say. You can choose between a bank account. And like Robinhood does a thing that if you spend $6 a month for gold, you get 5% yearly interest on any uninvested money. So if your uninvested money makes more than how much you put in, then it's better to do it there than put in a bank account. Does that make sense? So this is actually something I do with my money, with all $500 I have. So a person invests $5,000 split between two different stocks. Stock A made 8%, stock B made 12%. They made this much total money. How much did they invest in each stock? Okay. Phew. First thing I'm going to look for some sort of total. How much total did they invest? 5,000. So that means if I take all of stock A and add all of stock B, I put in $5,000 initially. Okay? So look for your total equation. That's always your first step. Look for some sort of total. Now I'm going to take some sort of rate or percentage. What was my rate for stock A? 8%. That's my slope. So I'm going to treat it like that. I'm going to go 0.08 times A, right? Because that'll give me how much money I made off A, right? If I made 8%, 8% of A tells me how much money I made off that stock. And I'm going to add to it, I made 12% off B. And again, I need a total and how many monies did I make off that? 454.56. Okay. Now, you guys go back in time, you might think, oh, I can use elimination, do this. It's almost always going to be substitution. The answer to solve problems like this is almost always substitution. Because if I have an equation like this, can I get one variable by itself relatively easily? Yeah, I'm just going to subtract a b over, right? So I can do a equals 5,000 minus b. Okay? And once I have this, I realize I need to get down to one variable. I'm just going to plug it in wherever I see an a. Oh, need another zero there. You'll figure it out. So I'm going to plug in. A is just equal to 5,000 minus B. Oh, this is going to get crooked. This is more crooked as a dog's hind leg. That's a Mr. Tamlin quote. I'll make it live on. All right. So now that equation's all in one variable, right? And I can solve it. It's messy, but it looks like what we did in one of the other homeworks, right? Distribute, combine like terms, solve. I'm going to make sure I do this right this time for once. So that's 400 when I distribute minus 0.08 b plus 0.12 b. Right? These become plus 0.04 b, right? Get this guy some water. Oh. Which part? This you get? Do you understand I plugged in? Oh, okay. So wherever I see that letter A, I'm taking this whole part and I'm putting it in parentheses wherever I see an A. Because it equals A. These are the same thing. Because there's an equal sign there, these two things are the exact same value. So wherever I see this, I can put in this. The reason why I'm doing that is because I can't solve an equation with two different variables. I need to get it down to one. So this is my way to make them all B's.
Then what do you do after you did that?
Then I distributed through and multiplied everything by 0.08. Oh, that's from up here. That stays the same. So here I plugged in that for A, and then the rest of the equation is the exact same.
Okay.
Good question. So I'm going rapid fire. And now here it's good old fashioned Single variable algebra. All right, and that's what, 54.56. So I got B is, what do I get for B? 128.57. No, it's not. I'm looking at the wrong problem. B is 1364. So I invested $1,364 in stock B. Oh, I added, so I took my point, I combined like terms. That was a negative. So I did 0.08, negative 0.08 plus 0.12. That's 0.04. Yep. Like I said, sorry, I went pretty quick. I got 2 cups of coffee in me already. Does that answer my question? That's how much I invested in B. How do I find how much I invested in A? What do these have to add up to? 5,000. So I just do 5,000. And the other thing is, once I get this equation, I can use again, right? I'm going to use 5,000 minus that, whatever that is. 3636. So those are my 2 monies. From that original, I use this one. We actually have another one just like this, guys, just so you know. I do 2 of these problems because these are the ones that come up a lot. The next one we're going to deal with is solutions of alcohol. Be careful on this one. All right, it's going to go away. Again, if you want to see a longer version of this one, ask ChatGPT. All right. So this is actually how you make solutions sometimes. If you're not using molarities, anyone at AP Chem, those people are going to be like, I can do it a different way. That's cool. All right, so you have 2 solutions of alcohol. One is 10%, the other is 3%. But you need 8%. So you need to come up with how do you mix them to get the right percent. Okay? You need 450 total milliliters, and you need to be 8%. So how much of each should you mix to get that solution? Perfect. So you guys, let's use A and B again. Why not? So I'm going to do solution A. Just do it. How many total milliliters do I need at the end of this day? Or 50. So again, that's my first equation. Right away in my head, what do you think I'm going to do with that equation? I'm going to have to get a variable by itself. So we're going to side note this and say A is the same thing as 450 minus B. So our old pre-calc book I used to teach out of actually never accept A plus B. They would just assume and go right to this step. But I like this better because you get a setup of why this is true, right? If I add them up, it's 450. Because if I told you you had 50 milliliters of A, you would know how many of B you have, right? Because they have to add up to 450. So that's my first equation. The second one's trickier. I'm still using percents. What percent is A? 10, right? So 0.01 A. Does percentages add up equal percentages? Don't quote that. All right. And the other one's 3%. Now, I don't know how many milliliters of A and I don't know how many milliliters of B. But do I know how many milliliters I have of my total? Yeah. So 450 times 0.08. I don't use C there because could I have put C there and been like, C is my total amount of solution? Yeah. And then I plug in, I know it's 450 is how many milliliters I have.
why do you change the form? I know you just kind of why are we changing it a by itself and then we're going back?
Oh, these are my two equations, right? So I could have ignored that until I got there, but I can only write this equation with two variables. There's no way for me to write it with one yet. Same with this one. I started with my 2. I'm going to use this one to get an equation that I can substitute in and get down to one variable. With these type of problems, you're always going to have two equations, though. You're always going to have the 2, and they're both going to have A and B, or whatever letters. I think I use A and B almost every time. Yeah, I'm going to use A and B every time, just because I like them. Because can I solve this right now? I can't. So what do I need to do with this before I can actually solve it? Solvent? Because it's obviously someone's laughing somewhere. Yeah. I don't think he laughs. All right. So what can I do with this A? What can I substitute in for it? Is this. So I'm going to take this equation and rewrite it. I'm going to plug in that equation for it. Okay. Questions on what I did there. I went wherever I see an A, I plug in that 450 minus B. Could I have done that the other way around? Could I always subtract A over and do it that way? Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I like to pick one way and just do it that way every time. That equals 36. Fun fact, that actually means 36 milliliters of that solution will be pure alcohol. That's how you calculate like what the mixture is. All right. You guys love science. All right, now from here I'm going to solve it. So I'm going to distribute. That's 45 minus 0.1b plus 0.3b is 36, right? Combine like terms. Yipers. It's a linear equation, like this chapter is about. Oh, hold on. That's not that's Jiminy Crickets. That's negative 0.07. What am I doing? Because that's 0.1, not 0.01. I write all this stuff down before I do it, and then I just, because when I subtract this, it becomes negative. Divide by negative 0.07, I get B is approximately 128.57 milliliters. I put approximate because you do have to round. It's scary stuff when you're dealing with solutions, but I'm sure we'll be okay. Yep. That's how I knew I did something wrong, because you can't get a negative for these, right? If you're getting a negative for like any of these story problems, you're probably missing a sign somewhere. That's the nice thing about story problems is they have to kind of work. Now that's B, so what's A going to be? What do they have to add up to? 450. So I got 321.43 milliliters. Not to scare you guys, push you guys, but if you do end up taking pre-calc possibly next year, these exact problems are actually in it. There's actually a huge amount of overlap I'm finding between pre-calc college algebra. Pretty much if you take the whole course of college algebra, that's the first 4 weeks of pre-calc. So a lot of overlap. I'm going to skip example 7. If you want, example 7 is a little bit, it's kind of like this problem, but if you want to watch that video and see another one of these, they exist. Also, the book has some more. But I have one more example I want to get through today. and it's less intense in this one. So if you didn't like this one, these are definitely the hardest story problems we're gonna have all year. Okay, these are the most work we're gonna probably see all year for one problem. Sound good? All right. So there's a company. It's growing. Well, that's good. In 2015, I was old. They were hired. They received a salary of $56,000. In 2025, they got a salary of $78,000. Make an equation. Do I have a rate on this one? They didn't give me a rate. Did they give me an initial?
Good morning, high school pirates. Just a couple quick.
Sound like Andrew there at first.
Any seniors who received an email inviting them to the PASS program to be mentored, please meet in the library.
All right, here we go. So there's no initial, there's no rate. But can I write this in a way that has that? There's going to be two ways to do this problem. Jiminy Crickets, I'm sabotaged. The hot dog tried to get me. So I'm going to show you one way to do it. If you want to see the other way, watch our Moodle video. But this is the way I would always do it. I can pretend like 2015 is my initial because they were hired that year. So can I treat that like an initial value? Yeah. So what I would do is this. I'm going to make 2 points out of it. Do I have 2 points? I have 2 years and 2 values. Point 1 is going to be 0, 56,000. Right? Because that was the hired year. Right? Yeah, because when you're hired, how many years of experience do you have? None. Could I put 215 here? Yeah, I could do 215 and 225 for the points. Don't do that. I don't recommend that because your life is going to be a lot harder than if you always say, we're going to start at the start, right? We're going to start at 0, 56,000. Because doesn't matter. My slope is going to be the same no matter where I put it, right? Because there's always going to be 10 years have passed. How many years did you work in 2025? How many years have you worked? 10. So after 10 years, you have 78,000. Okay? So now it's just like what we did last week. I have 2 points. Can I make an equation with 2 points? Yeah, I need to find my slope. So I do my change in y. Right? Because I have a y2, y1, and an x2, x1, right? So change in y over change in x. You see, by making 2015 equals 0, how much easier is my life going to be when I go to plug stuff in? A lot easier, right? I'm not dealing with thousands or anything like that. This type of problem, if you want to put a little note by it, is a population problem in the homework set, but it's the same thing. It'll give you 2 populations over 2 years, and you're still going to find the slope, right? So my slope is going to be, what's that, 22,000 over 10, right? So that just becomes 2,200. So that's my rate of change. You're gaining $2,200 per year on your salary. Okay. Hey, if you're negotiating, should you do that or a percent increase every year? Always percents because percent. No. All right. Announcement. Hey, that's your slope. You'll be fine. So that's my slope, right? Why? Hold on. We're going to do salary equals slope times year. What's my initial value? What's my y-intercept? 56 because I started at 0. So, boom. If I start at 0, if I don't start at 0, what do I have to do to find my y-intercept? Plug in numbers and go and figure it out, right? So now I'd have to say y is years after 2015. Does that make sense? So I do have to add that to it if I write the formula. But even if you did this the long way, you get the same slope, you get different intercept. Thanks, guys. I just want to finish that. We're so close.